Hey, you guys, it's your boy Eli here, and I'm happy to announce that we will be part of Comic Palooza's podcast partnership program. And we will be there live in front of all of you guys, everyone who's be attending Comic Palooza on May 26th and 28th. We will be doing a live podcast episode in front of everyone and hope to see you all there. Uh, we will be doing some cool stuff there, and I hope to see you guys there. Hopefully, a meet up. Who knows? Anyways, guys, hope to see you guys there. Anyways, peace. And welcome back to the episode of the Geek Centurions. It's me, boy, live.
It's me, Joe.
And so we normally don't talk about this because usually don't ever find the time to, but I feel like this is the start of a really interesting discussion, not only with comic books but also in comic book writing, and like the idea of like how characters are written in long format comics like that of Marvel and DC. So there's been a lot of discussion online, and it starts off from the current run of Spider-Man written by Zeb Wells, and it's sort of treatment of the Peter MJ dynamic, and how a lot of people are very pissed about it. And Joe, so you don't tend to keep up with a lot of comics now.
Yeah, I don't really follow much of the comic lore or happening nowadays, but I do understand that it seems that a common joke in the comics community is that Spider-Man is always getting screwed over somehow.
Yeah, it's what's called the Peter luck, and I feel like that term has like taken like a new form, I would say, because I've always felt like whenever people say like the Peter luck or like the Peter's like should always somehow lose in some way is both right but also like kind of wrong as to why that's why we one of the reasons we like him, right?
Right.
So like a lot of to explain the whole part of Peter luck is like even when Spider-Man wins, Peter loses. That's kind of the idea of the Parker luck, the emphasis for a lot of people who enjoy Spider-Man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's always when like even when Peter does something that is right, there's always some sort of like consequence to it, right?
Right.
Whether it be a good thing or a bad thing, you know. Like he misses out on a date because he had to go being a superhero.
Yeah.
Like that's like that's like the simplest example, but that's pretty much the key to that idea, right?
Yeah, and you kind of see that in some of the movies as well. You know, I think especially the Sam Raimi ones. You know, that it's super hard to balance the superhero life with his regular life and trying to keep it a secret identity and all that stuff. You know.
And even when he does like nail it, it's still like that part of him that feels like he has to do the right thing should always be the one thing to come out, right? So I think that's kind of like the idea of it, but there's also been like these things where like, especially in some recent comics, where like, man, he cannot just be happy. He cannot be happy. And so for context, for this sort of storyline, and the reason why we're doing this too is because we kind of want to talk about like why, you know, things like this happen in within the comic book industry. From our perspective, not saying we're from in the comic book perspective, but we're trying to come from a very like not negative point of view, right? Like not like to hear
Like
bash.
an objective, I guess. Is
Yes,
what you
an
mean?
objective stance.
Yeah.
And because like me, I don't like to bash on being negative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't like to stay negative. I like to be a little more positive in my life. It's worked wonders. Uh, but yeah, that's kind of like where I kind of want to take it. But so what's going on in current Spider-Man is that Peter did some shit, and it pissed off everyone. And we don't know what happened. All we know is that he did some shit, really pissed off everyone. And MJ is with the new guy, and they have kids, two kids, who are like a couple years old.
Right.
And when this first came out, I was very much like, okay, let's see where this goes, right? Because, like, I mean, one of the kids looks kind of like MJ. So I'm kind of like willing to suspect maybe something's going on, right?
Right.
So I kept reading. and I dropped off because like, okay, clearly we're not gonna get any answers anytime soon. I'll come back whenever they start answering some stuff, and like I would occasionally jump back and forth in the Spider-Man comics, and it's like, oh wait, MJ's got powers now. What? And I guess this new guy's kind of a dick, but he's not. Like he pays off this insurance guy who's like, I don't know, what do you call those guys that are always after
a loan shark?
Yeah, I guess he's a loan shark or something like. But like he was like, hey Peter, you gotta pay up, man, or
Yeah, that's a loan shark.
Yeah, kind of like he's like, here, just take the money and leave this guy alone. Like that's the guy MJ's with, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's working with Norman somehow, and this is a reformed Norman. He's not evil. He's like a good guy now. He's got his own like costume now. Good goblin. He's a good goblin now. He's called the Gold Goblin. And I can already tell from your reactions, like, I don't know where this is going.
I am pretty sure it's all ploy from Norman Osborn to once again screw Peter somehow.
No, he doesn't have that in him. He was cleansed, you see. Cleansed of evil.
By the Lazarus Pit.
No.
Oh.
That's DC.
I know, I was making a joke.
And so yeah, it's really weird, and like this has been going on for like almost a year, right? Until recently we find out what happened. So weird shit happens.
Right. As weird stuff happens.
In comics, yes. So Peter and MJ get transferred to an alternate dimension where time moves differently. Think about hypertonic time chamber.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And that's where they meet home dude. By the way, his name is Paul. The most hated character in all Spider-Man, apparently.
Yes, good old Paul.
And basically, Peter is able to return, but now MJ. And as Peter struggles to go in to save MJ, time is passing differently, right? And Peter has made enemies of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four in an attempt to get MJ back, and was willing to work with Norman Osborn. And here's the thing, he's acting very irrational, right, in the comic. This is where, in my opinion, because personally I don't think Zeb Wells is a terrible writer. I don't think he's a terrible writer. I think he's been tasked with something that's, whether it be editorial or maybe it was his idea, but he's trying to like make sense of it, but just can't get the words out. Hence, like I've read some of his other stuff, right?
Right.
You've actually seen some of the stuff that he's written. Remember that episode of She-Hulk from the TV show where like she's in that therapy room with all the other guys?
Yes.
That was one of your favorite episodes.
Right. Okay.
He wrote that.
That's neat. That's pretty cool. I actually didn't realize they actually got comic book writers to start writing stuff for the MCU. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, some of them actually have writing credits in other things. So that's something Zeb Wells has done, and that's I'm like, Zeb Wells is not a terrible writer. I think he's just had a very shitty run, and it happens with a lot of people, right?
Where you kind of like, I'm guessing it's sort of like there was an interesting execution, or rather interesting concept they wanted to go with, but the execution hasn't really stuck the landing.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I kind of stand, and I'll get more into it later on. But essentially, he's made enemies with everyone. He's being very rational, and like he's like beating up members of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, all to get MJ back. In the meantime, MJ has been working with Paul. They state later that it's been 4 years. It's been 4 years for them. So a romance kind of blossoms.
Right. Well, that sort of classic, you know, I had to, move on, and because it was there for me, blah, 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 all that stuff.
Yeah, and like, they find the two kids, and they're not hers.
They're just, like, two random kids they found.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's interesting, but she's still married, I'm guessing, right, to the this Paul guy?
No.
Oh, they're just in a relationship?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
They essentially started a family together.
Yeah, a surrogate family. Okay. Yeah. That seems to That ticks all the boxes. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, and like, there's a chance where she's like, maybe I can spend my life here. Maybe there's a chance Peter's not coming, kind of, cause that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then like once they get back, Peter is like, in a way, rightfully so, kind of like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I would understand. It kind of.
And then everything kind of like snowballs into like everyone hating him. That is the explanation that we've been waiting on for a year.
Right.
And with everything I just said, obviously there's stuff that I missed that I skipped over. What do you think in that sense? You as a non-biased person right now.
I mean, understanding the details of it all, like, no, I definitely understand how this could have been like a good idea, right? Because I'm guessing from the you can see the story as like Peter, it's a classic like Peter trying to get Mary Jane back. She's been put into this odd situation, like. I don't know, like, it vaguely reminds me from the old show, like the 90s show when, I think Mary Jane did get stuck someplace.
Yeah.
And, Peter was doing his best to, move heaven and earth, try to get to this girl, because he loves her. And same thing here. He apparently goes to the extent of fighting other superheroes, because it's like, I guess they're like, hey, Pete's a lost cause, you can't get her back. It's like, no, I gotta get her back, bro.
Actually, that doesn't even happen in the comics. He just kind of goes at it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. But I guess regardless, it's Peter putting Mary Jane above everything else. And it kind of just comes back to bite him in the ass a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, yeah, time, I wouldn't say time travel shenanigans, but just like, I don't know, like, it feels a little, I wouldn't say soap opera-ish, but it kind of leans towards that feeling of, like...
You mean comic books aren't soap opera?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could argue, right? It's like, hey, Pete just went through all this trouble just to get Mary Jane out, and then it's like, it turns out you've been gone for us for, like, 4 years, and then obviously it's like, well, I mean, things happen. I didn't think you were coming back. It's like, it's only been like, I'm assuming like maybe a week's time in Peter's life trying to get her out, right?
It's implied like at least like a couple days.
A couple of days. I would say a week just to make it at least a little plausible. And for her, it's been like 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, I can kind of, like I said, I can kind of understand where the story's coming from and why it was probably a good idea. But it's in the execution that it seems all a little bit contrived.
And I think that's kind of like my issue with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you just wanted to break them up, then just break them up, right?
And I feel like it's not the first time that's ever happened with Peter Parker and Mary Jane.
Yeah.
In comics. I mean, we don't have to... Well, I mean... Do we want to talk about One More Day?
And people are saying this is worse than One More Day, and I'm not saying it is, but I would say it's kind of like teetering the line of being almost as bad as that.
Yeah, because in case you don't know, the One More Day storyline, if I recall correctly, was after the events of the Civil War comic book storyline.
Yeah.
Where Peter revealed his secret identity. Shit goes awry. Aunt May gets hurt. And Peter makes a deal with Mephisto. A literal fucking deal with the devil.
Mephistopheles.
To save Aunt May. And at first it's like, I'm pretty sure Mephisto's like, I want, you think he's going to ask for like Mary Jane or whatever. But he actually asks for their marriage, their love, and stuff. And thus essentially breaks them apart and sort of kind of resets them.
Yeah.
So that Peter's just, all the character development he had in the years of comic books.
Out the window
to send him back to square one.
Yeah.
Which, from what I've heard of this story, it doesn't seem as bad.
Yeah.
Only because it's more of like you broke up Pete and Mary Jane again, but at least this time there isn't no like straight up, like back to square one for them kind of thing. It's like they're still the same characters, they still have the same experiences as before. It's just that they've experienced a very interesting event that has essentially broken them apart, and now it's like, well, what the hell do we do now?
Yeah, it's super contrived. It's really annoying. Like, I don't hate it as much as people online do, because for me, it's like, if you wanted to break them up, at least do it in a very, like, realistic and simple way, right? It doesn't have to be this, like, super contrived, crazy thing. And, like I was saying earlier, like, Peter couldn't make the date, or whatever, right? He had to save a life. Mm-hmm. Like, it's simple as that. You can do something simple as that.
Yeah,
it's like they just grew apart.
It's kind of their help. I know this has been a bit of a discussion point because of this storyline in the comics, but the way the Spider-Verse movie did with Pete and Mary Jane drifting apart is honestly way more believable and relatable than what happens in the comic. This comic run, Because in the movie, obviously, Aunt May dies, and then you start to, Pete gets really into being Spider-Man and just sort of like neglects Mary Jane, and they sort of divorce,
Yeah. That's much more plausible.
Yeah, that's just like, it's believable and realistic for these characters in a situation like this. Because it happens all the time with actual couples, except instead of being superheroes, it's just probably one of them's too busy doing work, or they have an affair, or what, or it's whatever. At least here, it's pretty much just like, oh yeah, I got stuck in a pocket dimension for like 4 years or whatever, and now I've moved on because I thought you weren't coming back for me. It's like, but it's only been like 3-4 days. How is it possible?
Well, you weren't there for and like, I'm not making MJ sound like trying to sound like a very like
ungrateful.
Yes. Like, it's more of like, for her, it's like, when will he come back? Maybe he won't. Maybe this is all maybe I can start fresh, right? It's like, I'm not giving blame onto her, and I think it's like,
no, I don't. I don't think Mary Jane deserves any of the blame. It's obviously the writers.
Yeah. And I don't, like I said, like for me, and this is very much like in line for a lot of Spider-Man comics right now, for a lot of Spider-Man fans, it's that for a reason, like, this is idea of Spider-Man that he can't do this and that. I don't know whether it be the writer, the the editor, or whoever. It's just like, can we just go and make it normal for us to, have Peter just save the day and not try to be involved with this overly crazy stuff? Because it's even funnier, right? Because, like, 2 runs prior was centered around all of, like, getting Mary Jane and Peter back together, right? That was like the first issue. It's like, Peter telling MJ, you mean a lot to me, you're important to me, yada yada, I love you. And they start getting together, and it's really like emphasized, like, no, these two kind of like are a thing. Right. They are like almost meant to be kind of shit.
Right.
And then, like, when that run inevitably like
ends
because like the writer ended up leaving for a different thing. By the way, this run also like involved Mephisto.
Oh wow.
So it was heavily implied, especially at the beginning, because I'm telling you this right now. They're like, oh, are they about to undo the whole Mephisto marriage bullshit? They don't, because I think they just they couldn't, like, just fall through, because they ended up undoing the whole Gwen Stacy and Norman thing.
Yeah, which we won't get into that one, because even I am just when I remember hearing that one, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, that's a bridge too far, man. What the hell?
Yeah,
like, Pete doesn't deserve this.
Yeah,
Peter doesn't deserve any of this.
Do you think Peter deserves what happened to him right now?
I mean, No.
But it's more.
It's just more like, what the hell?
That one was just more like, what the heck is going?
I feel physically ill. I need to, like, I need to go check a doctor because I don't, I'm starting to feel not great at all.
No.
Know what's going on.
My
here.
heart just sank all the way to my stomach, kind of shit. And like they ended up undoing that, and it's kind of dumb, but I was like, you know what? At least we're no longer, that cleans the slate on that.
Yes.
But it was very much like centered around like, why these two are important together, why MJ means so much to Peter, and a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then like they had like, okay, we're gonna do like we're gonna be moving around writers a bit for the Spider-Man run. We're gonna like have everyone take their turns and stuff like that. And in that one, it ends with like them moving together, and then this shit.
Yeah.
So that's another like thing that like I feel like a lot of Spider-Man fans are kind of pissed off is like all this build up, and then we get a total 180 for this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I totally understand why comic book fans, especially Spider-Man fans, are so like I wouldn't say pissed a bit, like just throwing their arms in the air, just like what the hell.
Yeah. And for me, like I still stand by the thing, like if I don't like it, then I'm not reading it, right? And I'm just not gonna like give away time. Like I said, I rather focus on things that I like, and rather not to stay in a negative sense. Now I mean, yes, I'm occasionally going back to see what's going on. That's because like I just want to know what's going on.
Right.
Yeah. And if I don't like it, I'm like, well, that sucked. Away with you. Away with you. Out of my sight. Kind of stuff. Like not in a negative sense, but it's more like oh, that happened. All right, I'll just move on with my life.
Right.
Because it's like, why would I give a rat's ass?
Yeah. At the end of the day, eventually, it might get retconned.
And that's kind of the thing, right?
It does seem like this. Like, normally I don't say this a lot when it comes to comic book storylines, where like, oh, this seems like it might get retconned. This like storyline so far, from how it's been laid out to me, has like the most like, oh, this has to get retconned somehow.
Yeah,
there has to be like some weird like thing that just
brings
everything back.
There's
to normal.
so many openings that are like, yeah, this can be written off. This can be written off. Oh, they're adopted kids now instead of her biological kids, even though one kid looks like just like her.
Yeah.
Which probably was like changed like midway.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, we can totally undo that. Yeah. That's fine. I'm not like, that's why like for me personally, that's why I'm not so mad at this. It's like, okay, no, we can totally, undo some of this stuff. It's not that hard.
Right.
Right. You just got to get a clever writer. Unlike, say, One More Day, where it's like, oh, man, you guys, wow, okay, screw you guys kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
Well, and, like, that's kind of the sad part about, and then as a whole, I would say, with comic book writing, specifically, like, superhero comics that are as long as something like Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's that, different writers come in and want to give their idea. And whether or not it is a good idea, it will always have some sort of like negative connotation, right?
Right.
Because like Immortal Hulk, which is a book that you probably heard me sing the praises of, because it's a really, really good Hulk book. When it got a new writer, a new run, it was not as well received because it was like coming off the heels of that epicness,
Yeah, it's like, how do you follow up, this grand, like, how you follow up such a great storyline, right? I think it's kind of like, it's kind of the thing with, I think a lot of things, right? Like, the sequel is always sort of like, rather, I think it's more like, when you make a trilogy, it's always hard to, like, make that final film good, because it's like, everything builds up to that moment, to this final one, and sometimes it's like not everything gets paid off very well. I think similar thing when it comes to like getting a new run but with a different writer. You know, it's like not like people are different writers. You know,
Yeah.
writers are different. They focus on different things, and you know they have different writing styles and stuff like that. So it's you know, you might get like it's hard to imitate someone else's writing
Yeah.
and like pacing and stuff. So to trying to have someone to try to do that, like copy that style, will only lead to like a little bit of disappointment, right?
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and like that's why, like I said, like I can't really like hate on Zeb Bowles. Maybe this is like an editorial thing. Maybe he had an idea and just didn't pan out well. There's a lot of like, yes, I'm saying like a lot of what ifs, right? Hey, I mean, that's Marvel. They always have what ifs. And but like, you know, I'm coming from like an objective standpoint. Like maybe, you know, this didn't pan out as well as they wanted it. Maybe they were very like hesitant to like follow through with any of their ideas because of the backlash.
That is also probably might be the case because, yeah, I feel
They
like
did tell the writer not to show up to cons anymore because he might get threatened. Which I'm like, guys, come on. Yes, it upsets me too that they did something stupid like this, but I'm not gonna threaten a guy. I'm not gonna threaten the writer.
that's that's always one of the weird things about fandom. Sometimes is that people feel like they you know, that they can totally just threaten, like write death threats to people and stuff like that. Where it's like, okay, that's not cool though. That's like, you know, like shit's like some of that stuff might it's actually starting to get a little like, you know, trouble with the law kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, you know, you can have your disagreements on how things go. Don't harass people. Just let more directed at the company, because I do think perhaps editorial might also be to blame. Because I mean, I'm pretty sure half of the reason why the One More Day storyline happened was because of one guy in Marvel's editorial that really wanted to just put Spider-Man back to basics.
Yeah. Joe Quesada really wanted the like it's this idea that, you know, Peter, you know, can't have a family, can't have kids because that makes him unrelatable, even though I highly contradict that.
Yeah, it's very funny that was his take. Like, Pete can't be an adult. That doesn't make him relatable at all. You know, he can't have, you know, adult responsibilities or like you know, that sort of thing.
Considering how a lot of people kind of feel about the next generation and like passing on the torch to the next generation, it only makes sense for like Spider-Man to do that.
Yeah, I feel like that is
There's a reason why people love Miles.
Yeah,
because it's like, no, yeah, Peter gave his blessing. He was like, yeah, go be Spider-Man. If I don't make if anything happened to me, you'll be there to take over. Yeah. You know, he would probably say the same thing to his kid.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? They made a comic book series centered around the idea that, hey, this is a universe where the marriage did go through, where they did have a kid, and it was like great. I loved it because it was just like kind of like this fun idea that like Peter and MJ were both like superhero parents, and like their daughter was trying to join in, and they're like, no, stop, you're gonna get yourself hurt. But you guys are like, no, stop.
It's different with us, right?
Yeah, we're adults, you know, that kind of dynamic. And like, it's this weird idea that, you know, and again, this kind of comes from like the idea of like when it comes to long form comic writing within like the superhero community, that they need to be a certain way, right? We were just talking about earlier with like Peter Luck, but I feel like at some point we all have to agree, like, hey, you know, that's not what we meant by that, right? And it's even funnier because I was talking this to someone, and it's like, man, when Peter is written better outside of his mainline comic, that's kind of sadder.
Yeah, it's like one of those like Marvel. It's sad to see Marvel not writing a character as well as someone else who's not even like a part of Marvel's writing room.
Mm-hmm.
Write the character better, right?
Or even like in other comics,
right?
Because I remember reading the Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, and like the first volume ends with like Peter like confronting us like, "Hey, if you go too far, I will come for you.
Mm-hmm.
I will get you. You can't do anything. I got the spider sense." and like Daredevil's like, you know, saying like, basically saying something to go, f off. And in his mind's like, he could kill me. He's he's strong. He is the strongest one of us. He's the best of us. And then I'm just like, dang. The amount of love Chip Zdarsky has for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He should have been running it, and I don't know why he doesn't. I think I know why he doesn't want to, that kind of level of responsibility. That's the whole point of Spider-Man too. But he also wrote like one of the best mini series for Spider-Man, Spider-Man Life Story, which I think I told you about.
Right.
The one where like let's have him as Peter like progress through ages, through the decades, the 70s, 60s, 80s, 90s, all the way, and it's like, oh my god, this is amazing. Like, yeah. This is also, like, written by someone who, and not saying Zeb Wells doesn't care about Spider-Man, but, like, someone who cares about Spider-Man.
Yeah, and you kind of like that from I guess from the comics perspective. You have someone who really likes the character, they'll treat them with respect and, all that stuff. And, I don't know, it's just, it is kind of weird to see. Because, yeah, I don't know much about what the situation is in terms of, like, who's writing who and doing what or whatever at Marvel. But at the same time, you would think that, they don't just give these, they don't give runs for characters out to people that they don't trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
To make it right,
Yeah. And it's like I said, I don't think Zeb Wells is a terrible writer. I think he's written some really cool stuff. That first volume wasn't terrible. It was actually like fairly decent. It just, I think when he has to commit to like the whole storyline that he's has to write about them not getting together, I think that's when it kind of sucks the most, right?
Right.
And like, again, now speaking from like a term from like again, like I said, long term comics. You're often not going to get the same kind of writing quality, and there's sometimes going to be like a level of like writing where it's like this doesn't seem to fit the character. And you also got to remember this character's been around for like a long time, and not everything is going to stick. A lot of stuff isn't going to like come back at all, and chances are that's what's is going to happen to this run, because like we said earlier, I don't think it's going to stick. And I think the people in charge know this.
Right.
Especially from, like, the way it's been reacted. Again, don't threaten the writer. Leave him alone.
Yeah, you can voice your... Again, you can voice your discontent, your disappointment, your, all your criticisms. Just don't, take it a step too far and, like, threaten to murder a man because he made a bad story with a character you really like. But yeah, it just seems like, I wouldn't say it sounds like a clusterfuck over there, but it just seems like it might have been interesting idea, an interesting concept, but it hasn't been executed properly or really well at all. And obviously people are rightfully criticizing it, and
I mean, I'm a Spider-Man fan. I love Spider-Man. He's one of my favorite characters. I don't like much of this run, and I'm being honest. Like, I don't like it. I'm not really buying the comics. I'm tend to be like, I find other ways to read it. Usually through someone else.
Right.
And like, I usually come back to him like, yeah, that sucks. I'm gonna put that back down there, and I'm just gonna walk away.
Right.
I'm gonna go read another Spider-Man book, one that I do like, and like, just like, hopefully hear that like, hey, this one's pretty good. I was like, oh, is it? Oh shit, it is good. Like, that's how I tend to go about it with my comics, right?
Right.
Even with Spider-Man, right? Like, I haven't caught up with a lot of Superman books, but I heard that the newest one is good, and I'm like, okay, I gotta check that out. I haven't yet, but I've been hearing good stuff. Even DC stuff, that's one of my favorite, like, kind of miniseries. Right now, I think it's on its own universe kind of shit.
Right.
But I've gotta go check out the books too. But I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I don't got time.
Right.
That's all I gotta say, really. And when it comes to this, it's like, and it also sucks too because like, oh, it's always written with like Peter and MJ. Like, these two just can't be happy, even when they're together.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why? Like, I don't want to see. Like, this is me personally, right? I don't want to see Peter be miserable all the time. And if he is, it's because he did it for a good reason. There's no good reason in this.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah, like there's a reason why I love the ending to No Way Home, right?
Yeah.
You know, Peter chose this. He's kind of back to square one. And, like, there's a chance for him to be happy, but he realizes, but I don't want the person I love to get hurt, you know?
Yeah.
It's probably best that I just stay away.
Yeah.
You understand why. You agree with it. And you know what? He powers through it.
Right.
A very, that was a very Spider-Man. I always say this. The ending to No Home is very Spider-Man, and it's a very good Spider-Man way to end it.
Yeah, I mean, it's similarly, I'll say, the ending to the first Spider-Man movie, Sam Raimi Spider-Man. That's pretty Spider-Man. He, there is a chance for him to be together with Mary Jane. She straight up just says, "I love you," and he's like,
"I can't.
I'll be there for you as a friend," and then like leaves because it's like, listen, this is I'm Spider-Man. This is I have to be Spider-Man. I can't let the people I love know who I am.
Mm-hmm. And then you also get like the Into the Spider-Verse Peter.
Yeah,
he's like he's able to pull off both. You saw the trailer? He's got a little baby Mayday.
Yeah,
I'm like, yes, that's all I want. That's all I ever wanted. My girl Mayday, she's back. But yeah, in my honest opinion, it's a bad run. I'm not gonna get like too overly negative about it. It's just like it's bad. That's it. If you don't like it, then just don't read it and don't force yourself to read it.
Yeah. I think that's good advice for anything really. Like if you, I mean, like look what happened to Velma. It was a bad show, but yeah, people kept watching it because they wanted to like keep shitting on it, and now it has a lot of views, and then therefore it might get a second season. You fools, you were baited. You got baited.
Yeah, don't hate anything. don't
hate
read. Don't hate watch. Don't hate read. Don't do any of that.
Yeah, just look at it afar. Take one good look, and be like, I don't like this. Put it down. All right, and then just go find something you do like. That's probably a good way of living life in general.
And just don't be assholes to anyone who works on them, because some of them don't deserve it.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, that's our thoughts on the current Spider-Man situation, and essentially, basically, like, comics as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, not comics as a whole, but like long formatted comic book writing.
Right.
But yeah, no, like, if you enjoy what you heard, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Geek Centurions. We're most active on Instagram. Be sure to follow us there. There's a link to all the podcast sites we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora. Link to the YouTube for all you audio listeners out there who want to put a face to the voice. Like, comment, subscribe. Patreon there for you guys if you want to. And we will be at Conapalooza. We have officially got a date when we will be there. It'll be May 27th. We'll be on the main floor from 1 to 1:45. Be sure to come check us out. And, enjoy seeing us live.
That's gonna be fun. I didn't think we were getting on the main the main floor.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool because I remember the times we have been there, getting to like notice that they had like these dudes who would do live podcasts just on the live floor, and then people could sit if they wanted to listen there or just watch from afar. I always thought that was kind of cool. So it's kind of a neat opportunity for us to do that now.
It's a neat opportunity for us to be funny.
Very true. Very true.
This guy's real funny.
I mean,
he will crack some jokes.
I tend to sometimes, but not all the time.
Anyways, guys, it's been me, your boy Eli.
It's been me, Joe.
Guess have a good one. Peace.